And then you have Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis. That's the state of boxing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Let that sink in.
Jake
That's
Paul,
boxing right
Gervonta Davis is so crazy. 135 versus 200. That is so nuts.
They go, the rehydration limit or something is 195. And he goes, wait, I thought it was 190. Dean, that's bad. Because you know what that tells me? That tells me that even he recognizes that he's too big for him. Yes. He recognizes that he's too big for him.
One thing that is not the common thing to have in a contract, if I'm Tank. A ladder. A ladder. Can I get a ladder? Somebody? You know what I mean? Hey, look, all kidding. If he hits him on the chin the way he can punch, Jake might be doing a dance. You know what I mean? Not voluntarily either. But we'll get into that more.
During a recent podcast, Joe Rogan weighed in on the highly anticipated Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight. Warning, this could get ugly. He pointed out the massive weight difference between the two and reminded everyone that weight classes exist for a reason. Rogan explained that while Jake's size and power might give him an advantage, Tank's skill and speed make the fight interesting. But that same physical gap could make the matchup dangerously one-sided.
And don't take my advice.
I love the Saudis.
Don't take my opinion.
I love the Israeli government. I love
That
everybody.
had nothing to do with them. That was Jake Paul promoting it. You know, it's just doesn't bother me.
There's compromising the sport, and that's like bad. It's just like
If I bet on it,
watching it with people who are so in on it, and then also the sports betting apps. They introduced like chat apps in them in Australia, so it's like they're trying to take the place of social media companies where you go together and you meet your friends. Like betting should be exciting enough without having a weird.
They're just trying to draw you in. They're just trying to make money, right? So they're trying to.
Joe Rogan has repeatedly highlighted how extreme the weight gap is between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Jake fights near cruiserweight, around 195 to 200 pounds, while Davis has spent nearly his entire career at lightweight, roughly 135 pounds, a staggering difference that makes the matchup hard to justify.
Is happening. WBA lightweight champion Gervonta Davis, who's unbeaten in 31 professional contests, takes on the self-proclaimed problem child, Jake Paul, one of the most influential and marketable global personalities. Paul and Davis square off in Miami after doubts around the fight being sanctioned in Georgia triggered a change in venue. Neither fighter can weigh more than 195 pounds. The weight is perhaps the most surprising factor. Paul has boxed most of his career around 200 pounds, the cruiserweight limit, but did tip the scales at 227 pounds when he faced off against Iron Mike Tyson last year. Davis, much smaller in stature, competes at the 135 pound mark and has also won world honours at super featherweight.
And despite some discussions about possibly dropping down to 10 ounces, the pair seem set to wear 12-ounce gloves.
And in terms of distance, despite the exhibition tag, the fight will play out over 10 3-minute rounds with 3 scoring judges at ringside, but the result will not be officially recorded on their professional.
Boxing purists and athletic commissions have also voiced strong criticism, arguing that a matchup with such a massive weight gap would never be approved under normal regulations. Even with catch weights or an exhibition label, they say the difference pushes the limits of fairness and undermines the integrity of the sport.
He should be Jake Paul, shouldn't he?
No, he shouldn't.
You don't think... Sorry, so... I thought we were all unanimous here. Do you think that
shouldn't.
Do you think Jake Paul beats Gervonta Davis?
70 pounds is 70 pounds.
Gervonta Davis is very small. 5'5".
He's tiny, bro. That's what I'm saying.
Jake Paul,
he's a little man.
If Jake Paul's tucking up
move on
and absorbing punishment and walking forward, then look, there's a way.
Rogan views this fight more as a spectacle than a real competition. He called the matchup 135 versus 200. That's insane, stressing how unrealistic it is from a traditional boxing perspective. He also expressed concern about the safety risks, explaining that when one fighter carries that much extra weight, their punches generate far more force, increasing the chance of serious injury. No matter how skilled the smaller fighter is, that kind of size difference makes them far more vulnerable.
Boxing, so you got Canelo Crawford, you got Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, that's happening. And then you have Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis. That's the state of boxing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Let that sink in.
Jake
That's
Paul,
boxing right now.
Gervonta Davis is so crazy. 135 versus 200. That is so nuts.
They're all exhibitions.
None of them are. They're exhibitions.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Just means that you don't really. Nobody wins.
They're not. It's kind of. I mean,
It's weird.
I don't want Jake to sue me. They're not. It's not like a real scrap. It's not real.
Really? So they're not trying to knock each other out?
No, Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather don't like each other. They have not liked each other forever.
Tyson and Mayweather.
Yes,
But they like
Mike
Mayweather.
Tyson and Mayweather don't like each other.
Huh.
If there's a fight that might be real, like where Mike Tyson might say, "I'm gonna knock this out," or "I'm gonna try."
Because of the massive weight difference, several special rules have been introduced for this fight. It's officially classified as an exhibition, meaning it won't count on either fighter's professional record. The bout will include safety measures such as larger gloves, an agreed catch weight of 195 pounds, and assigned judges to score the fight, even though it's technically not a pro contest.
If you do fight, what weight would it be at?
195.
Oh, wow. So he would go all the way from 40 to 95?
Yeah, I mean, it would be an exhibition.
Okay. And so what does that mean? Is that 3-minute rounds?
Yeah, 10 3-minute rounds.
And when you say exhibition, like, what are the restrictions on that?
No restrictions, just the fact that like we couldn't actually get it professionally sanctioned.
Critics like Daniel Cormier have echoed the same concerns, saying Gervonta Davis is clearly the more skilled boxer, but the massive weight gap turns the matchup into more of a spectacle than a sport. He stressed that Jake Paul is simply too big compared to Tank, and that this kind of disparity shouldn't be ignored. Cormier even questioned how a fight with such an obvious imbalance could have been approved by any legitimate boxing commission.
Completely just, I can't say the word that I want to say because I don't want to get canceled, but this fight should not be happening, and the press conference was embarrassing. Gervonta Davis should not have a mic in front of him. It was absolutely embarrassing watching this thing.
D, why? Why, D?
Just the fact that, like, every time when Jake Paul would say something to Gervonta Davis, he didn't know how to answer it. He was comparing himself to like P. Diddy at moments, and I was like, oh my God, get a mic away from this guy. This fight shouldn't be happening. And then he didn't even know what weight they were fighting. He's like, I thought it was
bad, D.
195.
That was the craziest thing. That was the thing that stood out to me the most. Was that when they go, the rehydration limit or something is 195. And he goes, wait, I thought it was 190. Dean, that's bad. Because you know what that tells me? That tells me that even he recognizes that he's too big for him. Yes. He recognizes.
Cormier also highlighted a growing issue in modern combat sports, extreme weight cutting. He explained that many fighters drain themselves to make weight, only to rehydrate and gain significant size back before stepping into the ring. When you add that to an already huge natural weight difference, the danger multiplies. The smaller fighter faces a serious physical disadvantage, while the bigger, rehydrated opponent could have a major strength and power edge. In a matchup like Paul versus Davis, that imbalance becomes even more pronounced. One man could step in nearly 30 to 40 pounds heavier on fight night.
Dangerous thing in the world. With us, we would go on Thursday night. If I weighed 216 and I had to be 205 by Friday morning, I would get as low as I possibly could and then try to go to bed. So if I'd get to 207, I would hope that by the morning I'd be 206. I'd only have to lose a pound in the morning. So I'm dehydrated for 12, 13, 14 hours. Those guys today are going to bed at that weight, Joe, 10, 11 over, and waking up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and cutting the weight. Because they said if they cut all that weight, they don't sleep, which I can attest to. It don't matter how much melatonin you take, you're so dehydrated. You're not gonna get a good night's sleep. I think it's dangerous.
Why is it dangerous?
Because you have to cut 10 pounds in 4 hours. If you don't, you're screwed. Because the worst possible feeling, you expect to lose 8, but you might lose 6 or 5.5. And then you're like...
Cormier also expressed disbelief at how the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight even came together. From his perspective, the entire setup feels flawed from the start. He recalled moments from the press conference where Tank himself seemed unsure about the official weight class for the bout. For Cormier, that wasn't a small detail, it was a glaring red flag. In a sport where weight divisions exist to protect fighters and maintain fairness, this kind of confusion highlights just how unusual and risky the whole arrangement is.
Jake Paul. Yesterday, they had their first press conference. One of the most recognizable things is Jake Paul is huge compared to Gervonta Davis. And two, Gervonta Davis don't even know what weight they fighting, D.
Maximum weight of 195 pounds for this exhibition. The fight will be contested over 10 3-minute rounds.
I said we're going 90.
The fight is 195 pounds, Tank, as you know.
DC, I watched this, and we have our priorities way misplaced when we're talking about boxing. Like, everybody's complaining about this Ali act and all. Like, how is something like this allowed to happen? How is Jake Paul allowed to fight Gervonta Davis? It's
I don't know.
Completely unfair. It is completely it's...
Coach Calvin Ford has expressed cautious optimism about the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight, but he hasn't hidden his concern about certain safety issues. He acknowledges that the size difference is massive, but says Davis agreed to the terms, so there's no turning back now. Ford's main concern is the glove size. He points out that 12-ounce gloves are typically used for training, not for serious competition. His proposal was for Davis to wear 8-ounce gloves and Paul to use 10-ounce ones, a small adjustment that could help even things out and reduce risk. However, Ford says when he brought this up to Jake Paul's camp, they shut it down immediately, insisting on identical gear for both fighters.
You know, the gloves. You understand what I'm saying? Because we don't fight in 12-ounce gloves. We don't use 12-ounce gloves. That's training gloves, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, that's 2 pounds away from Jake. He fights in 10s. Tank fighting 8s. So he losing 4 ounces. So my thing is, I said, they said, put Tank in 8s, put him in 10s. That makes the fight more interesting. You know what I'm saying? And we'll go from there because I understand. And I brought that question up to one of his handlers. They was, no, we don't want to do no mixed match. It's supposed to be an expedition. Why, you know, now y'all want the wins and the loss. You know what I'm saying? All these prescriptions, but you want to be great. Being great is really pushing the envelope. You know what I'm saying? You know, Tank don't really care, you know? So when I brought this up, he said, dang, facts. You know what I'm saying? So, again, you know, he can wait at 10s and we...
ChatGPT said, many experts have voiced disbelief over Gervonta Tank Davis taking such a risky fight against Jake Paul purely for money. They question why a newly crowned world champion would chase a payday against a YouTuber instead of focusing on defending his title and solidifying his boxing legacy. Daniel Cormier, in particular, said it's difficult to understand how someone of Tank's caliber could be facing financial issues so soon after major success. To him, this move feels less like a champion's calculated decision and more like a sign of desperation or poor management. Cormier argues that Tank should be protecting his reputation and thinking long-term, not gambling his credibility on what looks more like a spectacle than a serious sporting contest.
How are we with everything, man? How's Tank been?
In a good headspace, great headspace, looking good, you know, just trying to go through our stages, you know, it's like pre-camp, then camp, you know, get them from, we ain't fought in a while, you know what I'm saying? We was getting prepared for a Roach, and then we got blessed with this fight. That's how I look at it, you know?
Interesting comment there that they were getting ready for the Roach rematch, and then this fight was, you know, he said they got blessed with this fight, but this fight came through. So the plan was actually to go and rematch Lamont Roach, which is something that I think he should have done. I think they you know, for Tank's legacy, for, you know, just the sanctity of pro boxing when it comes to a world champion and what they do with that world championship belt. I think he should have taken the Lamont Roach rematch. It seems like they were going to, but the obvious reason that everyone, I think, knows why they didn't is because Netflix and a Jake Paul fight come with a massive bag. Like, there's probably no comparison to what Tank will make to fight Lamont Roach or anybody else compared to Jake Paul. Whether you like that or not, it's the truth. He is a money fight, and so is Tank. And that's why they're going to do a shit ton of viewers on Netflix and why they're going to both make a shit ton of money. So the point I want to take away from that is that they were starting to get their minds and body ready for Lamont Roach, which means that Tank was in somewhat of a serious pre-camp, right? Somewhat of a serious, you know, workout regimen, getting himself in shape. Not that Tank is super out of shape out of camp. I don't know that. But this means that he was mentally preparing for a fight regardless. It's not hopping off the couch Tank, which is not what you want to see even against Jake Paul, because the least serious you take Jake, and I've said this about everybody that's fought him, the ones that don't take him serious, the ones that say he's a YouTuber and everything else, they end up losing, or they end up looking like, oh, wait a second, this guy was a little better than I thought. They end up either getting taken by surprise or actually sometimes losing because they don't realize that Jake actually takes it serious. So this is good to hear. Just already right off the rip, they were already doing something.
Surprise. So tell me, when did you hear about this?
They've been going back and forth for years, Tank and Jake. They've been going at it for years, and it would have happened sooner. You know what I'm saying? But we have hiccups in life. That's what I call it, hiccups. But they lessons to learn from. But we back on track and keeping it moving.
When you heard about the fight, were you like, wait, what? Like, we're doing what?
Actually, when I heard about the fight, they called me and said, what you thought about it?
Joe Rogan argues that Jake Paul's fights are driven more by showmanship than genuine competition, designed to attract casual fans through spectacle and unconventional matchups. He notes that conversations surrounding Paul's bouts focus more on betting odds and media buzz than on sporting legitimacy. According to Rogan, Jake's real strategy is about maintaining relevance, using boxing as a platform to promote himself and stay in the spotlight, even if the fights lack true merit. On the other hand, Gervonta Davis has openly said his mission was never solely about chasing titles, but about escaping hardship and achieving financial security. That perspective sheds light on why he accepted such a risky, unconventional fight. For Davis, this matchup isn't just about legacy or pride. It's a smart business decision aligned with his long-term goal of stability and opportunity.
That was Jake Paul promoting it. You know, it's just doesn't bother me.
There's compromising the sport, and that's like bad. It's just like
if I bet on it, it
watching
bothers the
it is
fuck out
hard.
of me.
Watching it with people who are so in on it, and then also man, the sports betting apps, they introduced like chat apps in them in Australia. So it's like they're trying to take the place of social media companies where you go together and you meet your friends. Like betting should be exciting enough without having a weird.
They're just trying to draw you in.
thing.
They're just trying to make money, right? So they're trying to draw you in any way they can.
Yeah.
Many experts have voiced disbelief over Gervonta "Tank" Davis taking such a risky fight against Jake Paul purely for money. They question why a newly crowned world champion would chase a payday against a YouTuber instead of focusing on defending his title and solidifying his boxing legacy. Daniel Cormier, in particular, said it's difficult to understand how someone of Tank's caliber could be facing financial issues so soon after major success. To him, this move feels less like a champion's calculated decision and more like a sign of desperation or poor management. Cormier argues that Tank should be protecting his reputation and thinking long-term, not gambling his credibility on what looks more like a spectacle than a serious sporting contest.
That's bad, Dean. 195.
That was the craziest thing. That was the thing that stood out to me the most. Was that when they go, the rehydration limit or something is 195. And he goes, wait, I thought it was 190. Dean, that's bad. Because you know what that tells me? That tells me that even he recognizes that he's too big for him. Yes. He recognizes that he's too big for him.
I'm wondering how this even came about. It can't be that Gervonta Davis needs money. That can't be the reason why
he's been a world champion so recently. How could he be broke?
That's what I'm saying. Like, is he doing this for money? And then why and how is even Jake Paul doing this when no one respects it? Like, I can't think of anybody that respects this.
But Jake Paul has been able to carve out and make his own lane in boxing, and I've never seen anything like it, bro. He literally, I mean, we don't know what weight class he fights in any situation. We just don't know. He kind of makes...
Cormier strongly condemned the boxing organizations that approved the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight, saying he's lost faith in any group that would sanction such an uneven matchup. He called it a disgrace to the sport, arguing that these bodies are prioritizing money and media attention over fighters' safety and boxing tradition. In his view, allowing a bout between a natural lightweight and a cruiserweight makes the sport look desperate for relevance. Cormier warned that by approving fights like this, boxing risks losing its credibility and becoming more like scripted entertainment than true competition. He said the people running these organizations have turned the sport into an embarrassment, caring more about profits than integrity or the well-being of fighters.
The WBC and Jose Sulaiman was very upset that he wasn't going to be able to put the belt on the winner at Canelo versus Crawford. That's the thing that's happened since the beginning of the time. Those guys are very powerful in boxing. But with Zuffa boxing, it was almost like that power was getting stripped away. They were very disappointed. But how can you take those sanctioning organizations seriously when they are sanctioning this?
That's my point. That's my point. That's why I think that this whole thing that we have, this boxing and this MMA argument and Zuffa getting into boxing, our argument is misplaced because things like this should not be happening. And the fact that boxing is allowing this to happen is an embarrassment to the sport.
Yeah, I don't.
Do you think the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight is a genuine competition or just a money grab? Share your thoughts in the comments below.